Thank you everybody for coming. We're going to do things a little bit different to your normal presentations in that we're not just going to talk at you and make it a sales pitch. We're effectively just going to have a chat between myself and Paul about their experiences over the last 6 years?
5 to 6 years, yeah.
Years of going from no lockers, using trolleys, struggling with how they were going to manage it, all the way to where they are today. So I thought I'd start with a brief outline of who LapSafe is. So we started the business back in 1999, specialising in mobile trolleys, or inventing the mobile trolley for laptops. And the main ethos of the company back then is the same as it is now: smart charging, preserve the devices for as long as possible, and maximise your budgets for as long as possible. Fast forward to 2012, we introduced the first smart lockers into the education world, which, as we've discussed, most of the colleges in here have at least some experience of utilising. Into 2026, the landscape has changed. The reasoning for going for lockers, the reason for changing your strategy is absolutely transformed from what it was back then, to make librarians' life easier, to try and get a few laptops into students' hands, to try and minimise how many devices you're actually trying to manage, trying to make sure that you know what your utilisation figures are and you're not spending endless budget for laptops to sit inside trolleys or cupboards. Today is all about exploring how Paul has gone through that journey, what works, what hasn't worked, and the results. So if we move over to Paul, and we'll find out a little bit about it. So I don't know if you want to start by telling us what the problem was before, sort of when you came to us.
Yeah, absolutely. So we were in a position where we had a lot of technology at the time, fairly aged technology as well, that was residing in, probably just nearly 100 laptop trolleys across our 3 campuses. So we have approximately about 3,000-ish, maybe a little bit more laptops in circulation. The issues we found, first problem, laptop trolleys have wheels. Okay, so although that sounds great for portability, what that means is the resources aren't necessarily where they need to be when they need to be there. When it comes to a maintenance perspective, trying to find that equipment, trying to upgrade it, maintain it, and get it back into circulation in a timely format becomes quite challenging. Also, they were very heavily locked to individual departments, which is great for the departmental ownership, but at the same time meant that fault reporting or fault information wasn't necessarily getting through to us in a timely fashion, which then leads to that impacted student experience where resources aren't where or how they need to be. There's some other behavioural bits as well. So staff and students are notorious for not plugging in equipment. Be that the staff member's responsibility to plug in the trolley to make sure all 20 devices in that unit are charged for students, or on the flip, the students weren't plugging equipment into the trolleys, which means that when the lecturer does plug it in, they come to a scenario where they don't have a full complement of devices. And again, the student's impact has been seen. Those resources aren't available.
Fantastic. So I know that at that point, which was 2018, I think it all sort of came to a head. We first started talking. It took a couple of years of exploring solutions before we moved ahead. Don't know if you want to give a brief overview of what that journey between sort of 2018 and 2021 looked like.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously we'd been out to the market to try and identify what the next modern solution for equipment management could be. Obviously, like all investments, all solutions, you need to be mindful of making that investment and ensuring that when you're committing, especially to such a large scale project, that it suits those needs. So we decided to take a very granular approach. We are in a position now where lots of departments have got access, but scroll back all that time, what we decided to do was put the issuing lockers purely into our learning resource centres. Okay, this meant stage 1, students had support from staff if they weren't sure how to use the equipment and the services. We were able to get really good engagement and direct feedback from those staff around that student experience, helping us to then fine tune what we thought was the best way to manage. Some of that is around like timing access, how long a loan of a device should be, what the opening times and accessibility of these lockers should look like, so that once we went from a scale up and started running this across a business, we'd already got a bit of a tried and tested methodology, which would just be small tweaks in different curriculum areas versus just not knowing and going in a little bit blind, especially with level of investment.
And what were the main things you were looking for in a solution, aside from it can dish out kit?
Yeah.
What were sort of the big ticket things you needed it to do?
So for me, the first bit was utilization. That was the initial key frustration. When I'm walking the floors and I'm moving between classrooms and areas, and I see laptop trolleys that have been locked in classrooms, where there's no particular timetable session in that space. Okay, that's understandable. But when I'm also then getting requests for more assets, more equipment, it then become a really confusing balance. It's like, I can see all this kit, but we're asking for more kit. That shows to me that what we have got isn't in a way accessible. So how can we move these resources to that accessible location to provide overarching resources to our students, but ensure that the assets we do have are being effectively utilised, therefore hoping, and which has led to a reduction in our assets.
Yeah, which is the aim of the game, effectively.
One of the keys. The other part as well was around responsibility. Being in education, we're here to help our students ascertain what the workplace looks like. And part of that is about taking responsibility for what you do day to day. Okay, the staff members in our institutions, we're all issued with equipment. We are issuing our students with equipment. We don't expect damages. We expect our stuff to be looked after. The laptop trolley was a vague space in which equipment was just used. With the LapSafe environment, with the lockers, it now helps us to directly identify exactly who's using the kit, how long they've been using it, whether they've returned it, and enabled us to have those conversations with students to say, well, it's a 3-hour loan. You need to have it back in 3 hours. You need to plug it in. If it's damaged, you need to report it. We also know that you had it. So if you don't report it, we've got that accountability. And what we've now seen over the delivery of the product over the last 5, 6, 7, 8, however many years, that many lockers later, we've seen better student ownership. So there was so much more willing just to go and take the devices and use them as they need to. We've seen a drop in our student damages and an increase in the reporting. Now, I've got quite a lot of my team here today who may in some ways disagree with that statement, because we do still see damage. Of course, that's the nature of the beast. But I think if I compare that to where we were 10 years ago, it is massively under, and the repair costs have massively reduced compared to back then as well.
Fantastic, great stuff. And in terms of where you're at now, we're what, 2,000 bays into the project by the time we've got some deliveries to do. What would you say have been the biggest learnings that have happened during that you either weren't expecting or have been sort of a fringe benefit of going down this route?
Yeah, absolutely. I think part of it, maybe I hadn't quite considered, is around some of the asset lifetime. So one of the things that we haven't discussed yet is, because these are smart charging lockers, and provided a standardization over USB-C. So all of our devices now run USB-C power delivery, which is great to have got rid of all those millions of drawers of barrel jacks. But what that's enabled is extended lifetime of batteries, because we're not just charging them 24/7 over the weekends and breaking or throttling that hardware. We're able to release laptops and equipment to students when it has reached a charged point. So again, if that student had used the device before, it had been plugged in for 5 minutes, another student gets it, laptop turns off within 10 minutes of their use, that's a poor student experience, that's a risk to their work. Being able to state that every device has to be at a minimum of 80% charge before it goes into the hands of the students has instantly resolved a lot of those on the ground issues that our students were having, mainly because of poor management, poor in-classroom management of that equipment. So that's been a great fringe benefit.
Yeah, the other side to that is the 80% is obviously primarily there to ensure that when a student takes a laptop out, it's got charge in it.
Yep.
And they can carry on doing their work. But the way lithium ion works is it does a fast charge, it then gets to a point around 80%,
Yep.
ironically, where it goes into a trickle charge. But that it also completes a charge, that's a completed charge for that battery is 80%. And if you unplug a device before it reaches that charge, it will reduce the capacity of the battery ever so slightly, but you do that all the time in trolleys. You'll see it with your mobile phone, you'll plug it in to give it an extra sort of 10-15%, and by the end of your 2 years contract, I'm sure manufacturers don't do it on purpose, your battery's rubbish and you need to replace it. It's exactly the same with laptops, because those charge cycles are there to prevent what could be a dangerous situation with a lithium ion battery. So our system is designed to protect that from happening as well. So as we move into those sort of additional elements of the locker, obviously we've put some stats up here as well around some savings and utilisation. I don't know if you wanted to sort of explore a little bit about that side of things, so around the carbon, the
Yes.
electricity, number of loans.
Yeah, absolutely. So like all of our institutions, we each have our own sustainability agenda. We're driving to reduce that carbon footprint, try and reach that net zero. And for me, this has been a great step towards this. Again, because those devices aren't just sitting there randomly charging overnight, once they've reached capacity, they stop charging. It's meant that we've been able to see great reductions in the overall power usage that's happening on site. At Midkent, we've recently gone through a big project around enhancing our sustainability capacity. So we now are solar, we're air source heat pump, we're ground source heat pump, we're generating and storing all of our own electricity. So what this is doing is enabling us to harvest electricity, having reduced the overall amount that we're drawing. I don't want to say it's free, but what it's done is it's made it much easier to get towards our net zero aims by that overall reduction of carbon emissions.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the moment in your organisation, probably about 1,500 lockers.
Yep.
And in doing that last year, you saved over 20,000 kilowatts of electricity versus having those laptops in a trolley. So that's not taking into account the reduction in desktops, which are obviously 10 times more energy inefficient than a laptop, just the nature of the fact they're always plugged in.
Yep.
And that's just in moving it from one metal box to another effectively. But just by doing that, you've saved all of that electricity, the carbon, that side of things. And I think when we first started talking all those years ago, I think it was a bit of a pipe dream to get to 150,000 loans in a year.
Yes.
I think we were talking about sort of 30, 40,000 loans was the aim.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to explore sort of the expectations versus the reality, and also anything that potentially didn't match up to the reality or anything that didn't quite go as planned.
Yeah, absolutely. So one I think going back to also a previous question about one of the kind of surprises, what really I didn't expect from this is the level of student engagement, not only with the service, but student support for other students. There's actually a very nice heartwarming feeling when you start the new academic year and you have your returning students standing at the lockers and they're supporting the new current students on how to use the equipment, how to use the resources that are available. And that's very much enhanced almost a community environment within the college. And that's not something I would have ever expected to be able to say from a piece of metal, right? Is that actually it's enhanced our students' relationships. It's helped to enhance their in-lesson experience. Yeah, it's been a very, very interesting project. I think when it comes to maybe things that haven't gone so well, there is still a cultural change going on within the college, even though we've had this service for such a long while now. That's generally around how our students want to continue to access the content. There was a bit of I suppose, a misunderstanding in some ways between us around our students are now so digitally involved and digitally engaged that they've come to a point when they expect a touch interactive screen. They expect information to be provided. Through LapSafe, we're kind of here talking about the laptop lockers, but we've also gone through procurement of other products. So not only are we using the LapSafe lockers for issuing, we have our Envoy lockers, which is designed to issue tablets. And we also tried some BYOD charging. So the idea, one of the feedbacks from our students, we want somewhere to charge our equipment. Great. So we went out, we worked with Mike and the team, identified some charging solutions, brought them into the business. Now, unlike the diplomat lockers that have the laptops in, they are very simple. They just require a swipe of your badge to lock or unlock the bay, pop in your phone, click it in, swipe again, locker's locked. It completely flopped. Absolutely completely flopped. Because our students didn't trust it. Because there was no direct interaction with the technology telling them that their device had been received or what was happening whilst it was there, because it was quite a simple solution, there was a complete lack of trust in the solution, and it's just not taken off at all. And now actually looking at how can we use this in other areas, so things like charging of workshop tools or drills or stuff like this, where we can still make use of the asset, but flipping the purpose to still get benefit.
I suppose a part of that is probably down to the world outside of the college has changed. With, you go to the post office, it's full of lockers. You go into Tesco's, it's full of lockers. Where if you're buying something off Vinted, or you have a parcel delivered, or eBay, or whatever it is, lockers are involved in that process now, and they've all got a touch screen, and there's a certain element of being told what's happening through that process, that you can do that as a college for BYD, but it comes at a point of cost versus reward.
Correct.
How much money can a college or a university or a NHS actually invest in a locker for somebody to store their phone? You know, you can't spend that much money on it, because it's not really your responsibility to charge the phone, for number one. Number two, you've provided something at cost for them to use that they're not happy with. Where does it end, and where are you better off spending that budget? So I'm glad you didn't say account management as one of the things that hasn't worked very well. And in terms of your recommendations to other people sort of looking to go down this journey, what would they be after 6 years of doing it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one, hardware identification and standardization is really important. Obviously, to a point, you still need to stagger your hardware age to make sure that your replacement cycle is still effective, but ensuring that obviously USB-C is pretty much standard now. But yeah, ensuring that your equipment is as uniformed as you can make it, because it does make the back-end management of the system a lot easier. I think that curriculum engagement is critical. Ideally, you need your curriculum to embody the solution, because they're the ones that need to drive that engagement with the students. As much as we can from an IFT and support service perspective, we can be there to provide the resources, provide that initial guidance, but yeah, it's about really having that support from that curriculum on the ground, who can then support those students, direct them to the equipment, even down to how a lesson should be structured from an FE perspective. Historically, it would be everyone rocks up, laptop trolleys there, get the equipment, start your lesson. Well, laptop trolleys are no longer in classrooms, they're all in our corridors, they're in public locations. So that means that staff have already had to have prepared their students to turn up to that session. So there is a little bit of a change of methodology around how our curriculum needs to engage with the students and the equipment as well.
I think it's fair to say as well that when we first started putting these in, your curriculum staff were, what's the polite word, apprehensive?
That's a very polite word, yeah.
Do you want a better terminology?
Yeah.
And now they're the other way. And that's something we've seen in other sites, and had a call with Activate Learning, obviously a big college group, and they were looking to put one into a particular department. I won't say which one, as it's being filmed and probably be on YouTube, but that teaching staff was furious at the idea that you were going to take away their trolley. What are they going to do? How are they going to manage it? luckily for us, in other areas of that group, they'd already been through that process, and the teachers went, well, no, the kids walk in with a laptop now. I get my full hour with them, and then they walk out with it. I'm no longer responsible for, are they plugged in? Has a kid taken a laptop that's got no charge, so they need to go into the classroom next door to take one? I know they haven't got one either. Where are we going to go to get one? And you might lose 10 minutes a lesson. That's not the case anymore. And if there is a problem with the asset, just go to the locker and get another one. And they can report a fault back to IT by just touching the screen, and then they walk away. They're done. They no longer need to be involved in that process. So yeah, that's something that's coming up time and time again. And you guys were the first people, I think, to really experience that, because colleges are a relatively new thing for LapSafe in terms of the explosive nature of how it's grown. Now they're our biggest sector by a long, long way, but it's come about in such a short period of time. And we initially approached it in the same way as we did with universities that have been buying these things for a decade plus. And universities and colleges are entirely different worlds, where university students are customers effectively. You need to attract them to the university. You need to have shiny toys and fantastic things to get them to choose you over another university. With college, that's not necessarily the case. Obviously, you want to attract students to the college, but you've got so many more students in such a small area with such a small budget to try and achieve these things. You have to be able to maximize everything, from the types of devices that you're putting in there to how long can we actually make these things last inside the college, to what happens if somebody breaks a laptop. Nobody's going to take ownership of that. Whereas now, you know who it was. It's like robbing a bank and holding your driving license up to the camera. Going, it's me that's doing it. So it takes away so many of those elements. And the curriculum areas has been the biggest shock for me in doing this with LabSafe for so many years now, that curriculum rejecting it, seeing it, loving it, and then in certain institutions, curriculum offering to put their budget towards getting these things.
Yeah, that's been the real shift. If we go back, obviously people saw the pilot resources that were in our learning resource centres, and they're like, okay, well that works there, but that's not going to work for us. There is a bit of flag posting when it comes to taking ownership of resources, and when I'm coming in saying, nope, that's no longer yours, that's centralised, that's just to support the business. Yeah, that did take some real
Took a few years.
yeah, diplomacy, I would say, to get us through that. But yeah, it has now got to that stage. It's taking those small areas, not doing a big bang deployment, working with initially our more technically able departments as well, and then being able to demonstrate and show that benefit. So we have a student voice in the college. It's a great opportunity for our students to feedback. For many years before the project started, this is what they were asking for, which is one of the linchpins for me to go down this route, which was in a complete juxtaposition to what our lecturing staff are asking for. So when I'm bringing in a resource that the students want that the staff don't, yeah, there's a challenge there. But a little bit of friction. But no, being able to demonstrate those benefits, getting those forums where staff who have been using the equipment can speak to those that haven't to try and show and declare that benefit, brings me to a position where 5 years ago, every single department business planning request would be laptop trolley, laptops, laptop trolley, laptops. Hundreds of thousands of pounds in these requests, to the point where now I'm getting, we really want these lockers.
Yeah.
We know we've got the kit, we just need to get the lockers in. Let's get the lockers in. Yeah, departments are now putting dedicated requests for money for the lockers, which for me is great, because that's obviously one of the things I've had to do is identify it to our exec, to our board, about that effective investment. The curriculum's doing it for me now. You know, you're like, well, here is the demand, here is that want and need. I know a few years ago it was just me piping the banger, but actually, yeah, we're now seeing that heavily adopted within the curriculum, and yeah, continued growth to come.
Fantastic. So I know you've prepared a couple of questions for me.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously I'm very much aware of what you guys are doing, what your future plans are, but I thought it'd be really interesting for the wider room to understand, like, what is the next step for LapSafe? If you're horizon scanning, how do you see your product developing? And yeah, what are some of your next steps?
Fantastic. So Our next steps into education specifically are getting them to catch up with the corporate and wider public sector. So the cursed two letters of AI we have introduced into the lockers, but in a more hardware way. So AI-enabled cameras. So you put something in a bay, and the locker will tell you what it is. It will tell you if you've returned something that's supposed to have 2 accessories. Are the accessories there with it? So being able to do digital stores for media, instead of hiring a guy and a team to hand out microphones and cables and widgets and doodads all day long and not get half it back, or not know when it's back, or has the student had it for way too long and they don't need it, being able to digitize that, you get your request through, you load them in the morning and they come and take it, or have a locker system available with things that are commonly requested that people just loan ad hoc. So again, maybe it's lenses, microphones, cameras, that side of things. We've moved into IT vending machines, so with a mixture between staff being able to take assets from a vending machine, but also for engineers inside a college to be able to take things from a vending machine, RAM to replace. It could be a mouse, a keyboard, a headset, whatever it may be, an iPhone, a laptop, but they don't need to come and side it out. It's pre-authorized by, say, Paul in this scenario. An engineer goes to the vending machine, they select the RAM, the laptop, the iPhone, whatever it may be. Paul gets a stock report to say 13 sets of RAM have gone this week. An order goes into the supplier who comes and fills it back up again, and it just goes round. You don't need to sign it out and be there, and the engineer needs to go and do the job, but you've been called into a meeting and that can't go. So that's sort of the hardware journey that we're currently going on. With regards to the software, once Apple and Google finally put them on the Play Store, we're moving on to app-based usage for students. So them being able to track their loan, when to return it, they can borrow via an app. As more things become digital, being able to use the app as their digital pass rather than having a piece of plastic. It can all be done via their phones now. But effectively, the aim is to replicate what we've done with laptops. And it's fair to say, if I knock onto the final slide, we've done okay with laptops. I think it's fair to say it's over 51,000 loaning bays for them, to start seeing how we can replicate that success in other areas. I know keys have been asked for a lot, and key lockers tying that into the system. I know that people, again, digital stores have been asked for a lot. Drones have become asked for a lot. Conference owls, I understand education knows what that is, but I don't. Loaning those out. The requests are coming through thick and fast for things, sports equipment. There's a person who wasn't their job, but now it is, to hang out table tennis kits and cricket balls and footballs and all that sort of stuff. And when you hire your hall out to external people coming in, have to hire a person to be there to hand the equipment in and out. A locker can do that for you, especially when the camera will tell you that the table tennis ball is back as well as the bats or whatever's missing. So it's really taking that digital landscape and expanding it beyond the walls of laptops and tablets and seeing what else we can do.
Yeah, very much so. And we have reached our time.
No problem at all. Great stuff. Thank you all for listening. I hope it was useful.
Lovely.
Thank you, Paul.
Thanks as always, Mike. Cheers.